Catering Circle. In partnership with Purple Eye Technologies, in association with Meridian Grand and sponsored by MR Printers, RCI, Regency Events, iTech Boss, Prestige and DineNet.
Good evening and welcome to the Catering Circle. My name is Tanya Rahman and I shall be your host for this evening's jam-packed show. Now, with COP26 kicking off this week, food sustainability and provenance has been high on the agenda. On tonight's topic, we'll be bringing the discussion to our studio guests to discuss what can restaurants do to create sustainable and healthy food concepts to meet the demands of the conscious consumer. But before we get cracking with the show, here's a quick clip on tonight's topic.
Healthy food options and new concepts. Adapting to current food service trends in a post-pandemic landscape. Catering Circle has identified a number of factors that will drive long-term restaurant market growth. Constant adoption of advanced technologies to streamline operations, enhance customer experiences and increase revenues. Growing popularity of online food delivery and the expansion of delivery networks, including cloud kitchens, also known as ghost kitchens or virtual kitchens. Ethical considerations, healthy, sustainable and local options. Building transparency, traceability and trust. Wellness in a post-pandemic world. Eating healthy and staying fit has never been more important than now. As a result, more and more brands are focusing on assuring customers they are safe, healthy, high-quality menu items, standard of service and reducing waste. Diet-friendly options such as keto, vegan or vegetarian. Product variety, affordability and value. Small plates, perfect for a group. Embracing soy protein for better immunity. Food-to-go products split into two categories, those made for home workers and those made for office workers. Responsibly sourced and certified ingredients, including non-GMO and plant-based protein diet. With the food trends in the next 10 years, many health initiatives will come and go, but less processed and fresh food will be king. Nowadays, diners want to have some new and more healthy options. Trendy menus help attract new customers. But is that all? What makes you choose a restaurant? The food, obviously. But what about the location, seating? How far apart the tables are, service, the staff in general, the surroundings, the general ambience, and of course, the price. But what makes one better than the other? Do you follow the recommendations, or otherwise, of food critics' reviews or food guides? What keeps us coming back to the restaurants we love? In some cases, it's exceptionally delicious food. In others, the allure isn't about the food at all. Your restaurant may have great tasting food, but if the atmosphere is bland or distasteful, it will overshadow the quality of the meal. On the flip side, a great restaurant atmosphere will make the fare taste better, keep your customers around longer, and ensure that they'll return again and again. Healthy restaurants may finally be ready to serve up healthy profits.
Well, welcome back. Now, I'm personally really excited about tonight's show due to the well-esteemed guests that we have in the studio and also online today. So no doubt there'll be some really lively discussion. So we'll start off with our studio guests. So a man that needs absolutely no introduction. I'm sure our viewers know him as a Catering Circle veteran. We have Mr. Ahmed Samad Chowdhury, who's the chairman of Channel S Television and, of course, the chief advisor to Catering Circle. So welcome.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Next, we have Mr. Atiq Rahman. So again, Mr. Rahman, lovely to see you again. So you're a chartered accountant and a senior partner at ICI Chartered Accountants. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Lovely. And finally, we have, well, not finally, we have a lot more guests, actually. So we have Ahmed Maref. So Ahmed, I'm really excited to meet you, just to hear about your story earlier. So you are a nutritional chef. You also have a restaurant in High Wycombe, and also the author of the upcoming book, The Secret of the Moroccan Cuisine.
Yes,
Thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we have Les Edgar here. So Les is a retired investment banker, and most importantly, he is a self-proclaimed curry lover.
Great.
Welcome to the show, Les.
Thank you.
Walaikum salam. Right, so over to our Zoom guests, actually. So on the Zoom tonight, we have Shahina Ali. Shahina, are you there?
Hello, yes. Thank you for having me.
Oh, good to see you again, Shahina. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
This is a lovely evening. It's great to have everyone here.
Yeah, so Shahina, if our viewers don't know, she is a medical herbalist as well as a specialist in healthy medicinal food and cookery. And she's also a BBC expert and advisor on nutrition, natural and herbal medicine and healthy food and cookery. So welcome again to the show, Shahina.
Thank you.
And finally, but by no means least, we have the Queen of Curry herself, Sarah Ali Chowdhury. So Sarah is an Indian food ambassador and a columnist, as well as being featured in Forbes. She was also appeared online on Channel 4, My Kitchen Rules. So welcome to the show, Sarah. Oh, you might have to unmute, Sarah. We can't hear you.
Sorry. It's great to see you, Tanya. It's been ages.
I know, right? It has. We need to have a proper catch-up, so we'll do that after the show. Right, well, welcome. All right. So, so let's get cracking then with healthy food concept with segment 1. But before we do, here's a quick clip. Right, Mr. Chowdhury, I think I'm going to kickstart with you, as always. So, tonight's show, as we know, is healthy food options. So, I guess we want to kick off with, what do you feel and what do you think in terms of how we can change the eating habits of British diners? I mean, that's quite a big task.
There are two answers to this. First, I would say the British diners have changed their eating habits. So how can we change as caterers? Okay, that's one. The other is, what you asked me is how can we change their habit? Okay, so we have to work together. We have to find out the demand of healthy food, and we have to adapt to that. Our industry, as you know, it's been there for decades now. And up to my generation, we have been haven't been much innovative, We just followed each other. The menu hasn't changed. The menu probably got bigger and bigger, okay? The trend now is how can you specialize on your food if your menu is too big, So, with less items in the menu. And then about how can we change the habit of the diners. Of course, there are different generations of diners. So my generation would demand the older menu. Okay, new generation will come, and they would just want, healthier food and good presentation and so on and so forth. So we have to sort of combine everything together and make sure that we are giving something people need, the demand. There is the demand, and demand is healthy food, not oily food anymore. And also presentation is very important. I'll give you an example. This lunchtime, we had lunch near Channel S in an Italian restaurant.
Fancy.
And it was all halal and everything. So as soon as the food came to the table, I was 100% sure that I was going to enjoy the food. Why? Because it looked so good, meaning the presentation was so good. Okay? So being a connoisseur of food and being a caterer, I could tell that it was made properly, cooked properly, ingredients properly by just looking at it. When it was served on our plates, it was fantastic. So what does it say? You just have to adapt yourselves to the present requirement of the customers, and otherwise survival is going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they do say we eat with our eyes, don't we? So that's probably why you were going to enjoy the food. But I just want to pick up what you said there earlier about innovation and go to Ahmed, actually, if you don't mind, Ahmed. So in terms of innovation, as Mr. Chowdhury mentioned, like, why do you think menu innovation is necessary? And do you think it is the only way for restaurants to move forward now in this current climate?
Yeah, I think it's very important to innovate the menu every 3 months. It should be seasonal. And according to what we have in the area, for example, we try to use the local produce instead of getting from outside. Basically, I think if you stay with more than 3 months, the customer gets bored with the same ingredients, same menu all the time. That is my opinion in that case. Yeah.
Well, I think that's great. I think, you know, cooking to seasonal produce is a step to becoming sustainable, which is, you know, what we kind of need to be as an industry as well. So that's wonderful. So I'm going to actually move to Les. So Les, as a connoisseur of Indian cuisine and a consumer for about 30 years now, so how important do you think a healthy menu is? I mean, do you go into your local curry house and order a healthy chicken madras, or?
I would say so, yes. I try to avoid heavy meals if I can. I prefer a lighter meal. I think some of the newer innovative meals one sees now are interesting to go with. I have a particular favourite, for example, called chicken nazakat.
Oh, wow, never heard of that one.
Which is an unusual. I quite enjoy the idea of a different menu, innovative, rather than the old style that used to be years ago. The chicken madras, chicken kurma, which was a common situation, and I think that has to change.
Right, and nazakat, I'm gonna order that next time I go to my local curry house.
if they do it.
Yeah, lovely. All right then. So we're going to so Atiq. So, what would be the method of food pricing? Because obviously you're an accountant. You've done this many times. I'm sure you've advised many of your clients and things. So, what would you advise in terms of how restaurants can easily work out like their gross profit, especially when it comes to sustainable and seasonal produce, which is actually more expensive?
Yep. Yeah. As you said, I'm a number guy. So my job is to, of course, work out the profitability of a business, to advise how they can do their costing on their products. So every product have got 3 ingredients. One is materials, the second one is labor, and the third one is overhead. So every industry, every product have got these 3 ingredients. So when you are pricing any product, it doesn't matter whether it's a curry or a dress or whatever it is, you need to find out how much you are spending on your materials. So like on a curry, how much you are spending on a chicken and spices, so this kind of stuff. Number 1. Number 2 is labor. How much time you will need to make that product, and what is the labor hour and what is the labor you are spending on that product. So you need to calculate that, and then you are getting your gross profit, and from that gross profit you need to calculate how much is your overheads, how much you are spending for your rent, rates, gas, electricity, your cleaning, your accountant's bill, you name it, any expenses. So you need to measure how much you are spending on that product. And then if you deduct it from that gross profit, you will get your net profit. And then, of course, if you get your costing, then you need to think how much profit you want to make. Say your product costing is £10 and you want to make 30% profit. Then with 10% with £10 you need to add that £3 as profit. So your product price should be £13, plus you need to calculate your VAT and you need to calculate your corporation tax. So VAT is 20% at the moment, corporation tax, VAT at the moment is 12.5, but of course from 1st of April it will going back to 20%. And then corporation tax is 19%. So nearly you are paying around 40% of VAT and tax. So you need to add that with your desired selling price. So to be honest, if you want to do the pricing right, you need to do it in this way. Otherwise, it can't be right.
Well, my goodness, by what you've just said, I mean, I don't know why anyone would even go into this business then, isn't it? Like, hardly left with anything.
To be honest, if you don't do it, then you don't know how much is your costings are, and how much, whether you will make money at the end of the week, end of the month, and end of the year. So that's what you need to do, and that's what all the big boys are doing.
Sure. Well, thanks for the advice. I mean, it's pretty sound.
Thank you.
So we're going to head over to Zoom now, not neglecting our lovely Zoom guest. So I'm going to go to Shahina first. So Atik's actually mentioned ingredients. So we'd love to hear from you. I mean, what kinds of ingredients would you say are healthy? I know we spoke about earlier about provenance and seasonal produce. I mean, are they specifically healthy, or do you have some other ideas?
Well, I think it's really important to recognise the fact that we need to adjust menus to reflect the new customer habits. So you don't have to overhaul the whole menu. You can actually take and promote certain parts of the Indian cuisine, which actually incorporates a lot of healthy ingredients, and spices being one of them. Really, really important to recognise the fact that we have a unique selling point in the fact that we use a lot of powerful spices that have a lot of really potent medicinal effects. So cinnamon, for example, can reduce diabetes, so blood sugar levels, and things like that. Turmeric as well, anti-inflammatory. We incorporate all of that into our curries, into our Indian dishes. And so if you promote that, and also just really swap out a few things, such as ghee, for example, and replace it with something else, such as olive oil, you can use instead of other oils as well. It's really, really great at really using a low-cost way of creating a healthier menu.
That's really great advice. Thank you, Shahina. And we're just going to head over to Sarah now. So, Sarah, I just noticed your backdrop there. Are you actually in India, or is that just a really lovely wallpaper that you've got?
I'm in my sitting room in Bournemouth.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. You would never have guessed. You should never give that away, I don't think. So, Sarah, as we all know here from your introduction earlier, you are an advisor to many chefs and restaurateurs. So I guess especially following on from the pandemic, I mean, what have you seen in terms of changes in menu trends? Have you seen a big movement towards healthier cuisine? Because a lot of people are becoming more health conscious now.
I would say one of the things that we would have noticed after the pandemic is that when staff were on furlough and things like that, the restaurants, some of them were closing on certain days, and they introduced this Eat Out to Help Out scheme. And so in between that time, there were so many changes through the Indian restaurants that they had no choice but to really change the way that they were doing things in terms of keeping some sort of income coming in, because when there was no one allowed in the restaurants, having to create outdoor seating wasn't possible for everybody. I know they made funding available, but if you don't have the space, then it's still not going to really be helpful. But one of the things that I would say in terms of new concepts would be that the Indian restaurants known for having pages and pages of dishes that you can order when you go into a restaurant. And I think that's one of the reasons that we need so many staff in the kitchen. And as we already know, there is already a staff issue. And by compressing the menu and making it a little bit smaller, still being able to create the usual dishes, which everybody knows what they are by now, the dansak and buna and chicken tikka masala and biryani. Most people who are coming in the restaurant, they already know what those dishes are. So is it really necessary to keep writing pages and pages of what you're selling in your restaurant? Instead, why we're not creating unusual dishes, completely something new, something different and delicious, that means that other people don't actually know how you're creating that dish because you're using a different name for it than the usual, and which will bring your own customers who come and try it, and if they love it, they're going to come back for more. And I think that's a way of introducing a slightly new concept of reducing your menu, which means you don't need as many staff in the kitchen, and being able to keep customers coming in.
Those are really great. Thanks, Sarah. Actually, I want to go to Les, actually. So, Les, from what Sarah has just mentioned, as a curry lover and a consumer, have you noticed then a change on the menu at your local curry house? One
of them, yes, had a quite considerable difference in what it used to be years ago. innovative menus, always interesting to go to. Even some of the words are interesting. One doesn't know them necessarily, but always happy to try them. I'm quite adventurous in a choice like that. So excellent.
Oh, that's great. Well, Ahmed, I mean, you're a restaurateur yourself. So going back to what you mentioned about seasonal produce and changing your menu every 3 months or so, do you ever get to a situation where customers actually send food back, or are demanding maybe items that were on the menu previously?
Yeah, we had in the past few times when the customer complain about food, or maybe it's bland, maybe less of seasoning, maybe it's a lot of reason behind them. But we try to do our best to please our customer and try to change the plate and make it look nice for them and give them something for free or something to make them happy. Always you find the customer like that. You cannot guarantee all the time the customer will be happy. You should do your best. Our business is to entertain business at the end of the day. It's people coming out to eat, to have a nice meal, nice environment, and have a good experience. That is the reason. So we try to do our best to make them happy, Yeah.
And how do you communicate the change in your seasonality of the menu? Is that done on your website or word of mouth?
Yeah, our delivery guys they introduce new products, and we see how we can put them in a new menu. So if it fits in our menu, then we can see our customer what they need. For example, for the next season, if they like to have, like, for example, okra, we have like some weird ingredients never heard before, and they say, what was that? I say, okay, what do we do with this sauce? It will work or something like that, So we introduce new ingredient for them, and we go from there.
Yeah. And what about plant-based items? Are you moving towards that a bit more?
Yeah, we have, I think plant-based vegan options.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people nowadays become vegan. It's like become trendy. So they want to have a lot of pulses in their food and stuff. But I mean, my opinion, it make any difference because our grandparents, they grew up with normal, meat diet and stuff. But nowadays become like trend. Everybody wants to become vegan because it's healthy, to look good shape, you go to the gym and stuff like that. But we try to please the customer at the end of the day, whatever they like. Vegetarian, gluten-free, vegan people. So it's all the same, but we treat them the same.
Sure. And Les, are you on this vegan trend?
Not at all vegan, no, but I do go for the vegan options quite often. Yeah. It's not just because it's healthy, I prefer it. It's eco-friendly as well, in terms of the planet situation. I think many people are doing it, frankly.
Yeah, for sure, especially in terms of what I mentioned earlier about the COP26 initiative.
Exactly.
It's a huge shift.
A timely situation to be doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think you ever will make this trend?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm too old to be go that far.
Lovely. Well, we're going to be continuing this discussion after the break. So here's a quick break.
Catering Circle. In partnership with Purple Eye Technologies, in association with Meridian Grand, and sponsored by MR Printers, RCI, Regency Events, iTech Boss, Prestige and DineNet.
Welcome back to the Catering Circle. If you've just joined us, welcome to the show. Tonight's show is all about healthy food options. And before we get cracking with this section of the show, don't forget to visit our website, channels.com, and also download our app to watch all historical episodes of the Catering Circle. So, in our studio, we have Toff Mia, who's just joined us. Welcome, Toff.
Oh, hello. Nice to be here, as always.
Yes, good to see you again. So, Toff, for those that you don't know, is a winner of the Catering Circle Season 2 Restaurant Talent Show way back in 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's also the Secretary of the British Bangladeshi Caterers Association. So, once again, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to kick off this segment, and we were talking before the break about healthy food options. So actually, I want to ask you, Toff, I know you have a really successful restaurant, Bayleaf, and in terms of your menu creation, how did you build a healthy, high-quality restaurant and focus on your menu?
Well, no rest for the wicked. You have to work hard. You have to be open-minded. You have to be creative. You have to get the team working with you to innovate and ever-changing food. You see, food evolves around with times. But important thing is making sure that keeping the authenticity as well as making the twist. Now, curry, to be honest, you can't do much about presentation. However, We offer grill food like tikka, lamb chop, tandoori chicken, kebab, nazakat, as one of the customer mentioned earlier. You know, you can do a lot plating. And it doesn't come at a cheap. It costs you to do this because when you focus, it takes time, planning to deliver. And when you do that, and when you present the dish in a different way to your run-of-the-mill curry house, you can justify charging as well. And that's what I do.
Wow. Could you just explain to our viewers and also the guests, what is a nazakat?
Oh, well, it's a name, obviously.
Right.
It's 3 cubes of chicken,
right,
grilled in 3 different flavor and served on a plate. And however, the important thing is 3 different color: white, green, Haryala tikka, and the normal tikka. So it looks very good to the eye as well as taste buds.
Oh, lovely. So very healthy then. So very much in line with the show, the theme today. Great. Okay. Well, I'm going to go to Sarah, actually. So, Sarah, I know you have also done a lot in terms of your career in changing the perception of Indian food from it being, you know, something you eat on a Friday night, really heavy and fatty, to actually it being quite a healthy cuisine. So could you just give us a quick, brief overview in terms of how you managed to do that?
I would say one of the things that when I first sort of started getting involved in the, well, I mean, I was born in the Indian catering industry, but I had a big break from it. And when I wanted to come back, I was just really mainly talking about recipes that we eat at home, because the food that we eat at home is, you know, it is healthy and it is good, and it's very different from the restaurant. But of course, we're cooking in the restaurant for bulk, for so many customers, so many different dishes. One of the things that I was mentioning earlier, there's just so many dishes on the menu, and they're providing, you know, this bulk orders. It's difficult to be able to create those flavors and make all of them as healthy. So when everybody at the moment is talking about a trend in being vegan or vegetarian, I mean, if you go to India, everything is vegetarian and everything's delicious. You can just eat all day and you feel like, you know, you feel great. You still feel really good. I went to India, you know, last year, just before the pandemic sort of came over here. I was in India with my mum, and we were eating out, and we were just eating most of the day, and it was all, you know, vegetarian food, all very, very healthy, very delicious. And that's what Indian food is known for. Really, I mean, in England, it's been changed to, you know, accommodate the Western palate, as everyone says, and it became along the way, it became a little bit more colourful, a little bit greasier, and that sort of thing. But I would say, going back to our own roots, when I do things like cookery demonstrations at food festivals, I show people how we eat at home. So, you know, it's a lot to do with maybe slowing the process down a little bit, which is something you can do when you're cooking at home. But when you're cooking in the restaurant, you know, there's always that opportunity for handi cooking. And for those of you, you know, who are on the show who don't know what handi is, it's like the big pot, you know, slow cooking food, which is very healthy and also makes the food very delicious.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And I actually want to go to Shahina, just picking up in terms of what Sarah just mentioned in terms of ingredients and the way Indian food is actually traditionally cooked. So you mentioned earlier actually on the show that specific ingredients that are healthy. But I think what the challenge a lot of restaurateurs have is promoting those ingredients on the menu. I mean, what advice would you give to them in terms of helping them promote that?
I think what's really important is that we need to try and digitize the experience a little bit, the customer experience, because that in turn will help the customers feel a bit more safer and less anxious about basically the COVID situation at the moment, but also it will also be more useful for the restaurant and takeaways themselves, because they can analyze the data that they get from that. So they can then, rather than guess, they can test the menus and the dishes they actually create. So even before creating the dishes, they can actually find out what kind of options that the customers would prefer. That will save costs. But also after the creation of certain dishes, so a hero product for a season, for example, so using seasonal ingredients, and that one hero dish can be promoted heavily, but if the data doesn't say that it's actually great as a revenue generator, that can be changed quite quickly. So you're not spending a huge amount on the budget, blowing the budget on a whole new menu. The other thing we need to really, can we just talk about the fact that we have an amazing apparatus, the tandoor oven, which we don't seem to promote heavily enough as being really healthy, and it's incredibly healthy. And it's the one big thing that we have differentiating us from other cuisines. So that and the spices that I mentioned earlier, I think they're really fantastic to promote heavily to customers. And also just to keep an eye out on the new health trends like keto that was mentioned as well in the interim, paleo diets as well. Those are really important things. I think a lot of customers don't want to have really healthy options consistently during the winter and seasonal, the festive period. They want to indulge a little bit. But it's also great to try and rev up and turbo boost your options that are healthier during the January period, which is normally a dead time for restaurants in the catering industry, and really promote that as a healthy option to basically create a fitter body and a healthier New Year type of experience. So vegan options are brilliant for that. We have loads of those in the Indian cuisine.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Indian cuisine is traditionally quite vegan and vegetarian heavy. So, yeah, we should be introducing more of that onto our menus. So, in relation to what Shahina just said then, Toff, I mean, obviously in your restaurant, do you run vegan or menus that are around keto or any specific dietary requirements?
You'd be surprised to know, just in case if you don't know, you can get vegan chicken flavor, vegan lamb flavor. So options are coming in thick and fast, and it's a massive market out there. And we, as Asian, Southeast Asian restaurateurs, must look into it seriously to capitalize, because if you're not in it, you cannot be. If you're not on board at the right time, you'll be losing out. I do offer vegan options. I'm at this minute, as I'm speaking, we are creating a menu with vegan lamb, vegan chicken. In effect, what it is plant-based product, but tastes and looks like lamb and chicken. So it's something that we are doing, and it's very important that everybody should follow the trend, because veganism is a massive trend at the moment, and we cannot be overseeing that, or we cannot be out of it. We have to be in it to win it.
For sure. In fact, I don't even feel like it's a trend. I think it's the actual shift in consumer appetite now.
Yeah.
Trends come and go, but veganism, I don't feel like it's going to go at any point. It's here to stay.
Well, it's healthier. Plant-based food is healthier. And we are very health conscious, particularly in the Western countries, you have to say. I know Sarah said that earlier, that in Asia, most of the food is vegetarian. However, there can be more oil as well. So, that has to be looked at as well. It's not only about carbs and protein and fiber. It's how you cook it as well. I mean, Shaheen said that the grill food, you cannot get any healthier food than grill food. It's very healthy, and we are delivering that for years after years, and it's doing ever so well. There's no question about it. But then again, like I said earlier, food evolves around, and trend is your friend, and you have to be in it to win it.
I love that. Trend is your friend.
Absolutely.
That's great. I'm definitely taking that with me. Hashtag everyone, trend is your friend. Let's get that trending on Twitter. Right, so Mr. Chowdhury, I actually want to talk about briefly what Ahmed mentioned earlier in his restaurant. He focuses very much on seasonal produce. So we've seen, obviously currently healthy menu trends that are forming and demanding farm fresh ingredients. So what do you think that the British agricultural infrastructure, do you feel like they can support that kind of dietary shift to plant-based menus?
Not at the moment, because they will have to adapt as well. And there is a huge staff shortage in their industry. So I'm sure they would prefer, rather than something innovative, do what they have been doing, So they need a lot of support from the government in order to employ people or get people into their industry. And then from our side, we have to put the pressure on them that we need this, we need that, so they will be prepared to, produce that kind of products.
Right, okay, a good point, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, the government is offering to apply for a license to get skilled workers
But
from back
skilled
home.
is not good enough.
Sorry? Of course, the low-skill staff, we have a massive issue.
Yeah.
That's why BBCA team has been to number 10 Downing Street last week, lobbying to the ministers for the low-skill staff. I mean, sorry, forgive me for saying low-skill staff, because nobody's low-skill. Everybody has their own skill.
Absolutely.
What I meant is commie waiters, the cleaners, the porters, all that, there is a huge shortage. And that's where we should knock on the door of the government. Skill offers, skill staff, if you're trading, you should apply. I've got 3 licenses to get 3 skilled staff from abroad, including Asia, Middle East, and they're in the process at the moment. And these people will bring new creative ideas because they've been working in 5-star hotels, 3-star hotels, 4-star hotels, including Dubai, and you can handpick them, take interview, handpick them, and bring them. However,
but that's not good enough. We're talking about the unskilled workers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Unskilled
very important.
yeah.
Even not just in agriculture industry, in the catering sector, the restaurants,
workers.
you know, I don't know the future. You can have good chefs, but who is going to support them, you know? So there is a big shortage in every angle, you know.
Even the 5-star hotels in central London are shortage of. I mean, I hate saying low-skilled workers. We're talking about porters, commies, and cleaners. It's across the board because of the Brexit, as well as there is a shortage of staff. And that's why I said we are lobbying, and we should do it together. Every organization should come forward lobbying with us as well. And that's creating pressure to the government. If you don't cry, even a baby, if a baby doesn't cry, the mother doesn't feed them. So we have to go and lobby and put our strongest point to the government, and hopefully they will hear on their deaf ears.
Absolutely. I mean, there is strength in numbers, isn't there?
Yeah.
So, Ahmed, what do you feel in terms of what Toff has mentioned? Have you been personally affected by it in your restaurant?
Yeah, we are actually struggling extremely. We don't have a lot of chefs. We have no staff at all, to be honest.
Right.
Especially after Brexit nowadays, it's hard to find anybody to work. And now the minimum wage go up high now, so it's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, there is people out of the UK, out of Europe. They are actually hungry for work and for success. They should have just the opportunity to come here and work hard as well to support the economy. And I think it's really have a big impact on the economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you focus? I know tonight's topic is about healthy food and menu innovation, but you clearly have bigger problems.
Yeah, we are.
So how are you juggling the both?
Well, at the moment we are working 12-hour shifts, so we have to cover. So we don't have chefs at all. We have actually three guys in our restaurants, so we cannot cope when you have, like, for example, weekend. We have a lot of cover coming, so we can cope. So sometimes you struggle to give the right dish how we should be. I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, and people now, they don't want to work as well after what's happened in the furlough. After the, yeah, because you get used to it for so many times nowadays. So it's hard how we can work 12 hours and get paid for that money. Yeah, so it's been spoiled a little bit.
So unskilled workers are the main problem at the moment.
Yeah.
In every industry.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what do you think the solution is then?
Solution is government, like I said, lobbying, creating pressure, and hopefully the deaf ears will hear and wake up and help us.
And if they don't?
If they don't, we have to manage somehow as we are managing. There's no other alternative, is it? Really?
Or close down.
Or close down. And some of them, you're absolutely right there. Some of the places are closing down due to the staff shortage because, look, some of the bosses or the owners or the directors or the managers been running restaurant for 30 years. And after 30 years, if you struggle,
they're tired,
that makes you feel low, and they just hang the boot. And the losses will be across the board. because one shop empty in the high road, it's a bad news for the government as well as the local government. So we need to somehow get this sorted very quickly, very, very quickly. And another solution is, in my opinion, if you are shortage of staff, I don't know, Marif will agree or not, have a simple menu. And you can get away once or twice. Of course, you can't get away.
You still
always.
need labours for that.
Still need labours, absolutely. But you know what I do is I take limited amount of customers rather than taking what I normally would, because end of the day you have to maintain your reputation. That is the first and foremost, because when the customers come to dine at your place, they are spending their hard-earned money. And if you don't give them the experience, they're not going to return. And if they don't return, you're not going to be there.
Yeah. True.
Great. All right, well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed that debate on this segment. So we're actually going to go to segment 2 now, which is adopting new concepts. So here's a quick clip.
Well, you can find staff. So don't think that everyone is like that.
know that.
Right, okay, all right, guys. So I know we've continued in this debate. We can carry on and probably talk about it for an age
For
now,
hours.
but for hours and hours. But let's go on to adopting new concepts. So I'm going to start with Mr. Chowdhury on this segment to kick it off. So, Mr. Chowdhury, street food outlets, Indian street food is becoming exceptionally popular. I think that has most definitely been a trend. Now, what do you feel in terms of these new concepts and trends moving in these directions? Would you recommend them for restaurateurs, or would you say stick to what you know?
Definitely, I would say that, adapt to the new ideas, the new concepts, like the chai wala and the sum, and don't stay where you were, like I was, my generation, adapt to the new trend and change. Have a shorter menu and innovative menu. That way, you can make money. Otherwise, in the hospitality industry, the way we charge, the profit margin is very low, and it's going to be tough to survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I want to bring Sarah into the conversation here. So, Sarah, you're clearly Sorry, Sarah. So, Sarah, you're clearly a lady that has her finger on the pulse. So, what do you feel in terms of your experience, in terms of seeing what the new eating trends are at the moment?
So I would say more recently I've started working in, I'm a host at a restaurant in Ringwood, and which is in Hampshire, not far from where I am. And what I can say is it's an extremely busy restaurant, and it's constantly changing. Everything changes on a regular basis. It's always introducing new dishes. It's always introducing things that will attract more people to come back again and again. They sell, limitless types of alcohol, which is one of the things that I think a lot of the Bangladeshi restaurants, especially from past, without touching any raw nerves here, has tried to get into that habit of doing an Indian restaurant but not selling alcohol because of the halal, haram stuff. And then what happens is somehow they lose themselves a little bit because they want to do, an Indian restaurant that doesn't sell alcohol in England, when the majority of our clients are alcohol drinkers, and then you have this other concept of introducing, we're not going to sell alcohol, but you can come in and bring your own. You know what I mean? So it's like, in my opinion, if you want to be a restaurant that's pushing forward, bringing in customers, being, at the forefront of the catering trade, you need to be prepared to be able to live up to those trends. It's not just the food, because most of our customers are not Bangladeshi people. they're not Indian people. Majority of them are, white British people who like to have a glass of wine with their meal. They like to have a drink, a lager, whatever. And that's where we make most of the profit from. So if we're talking about profit and concept and keeping customers coming in, you need to be up to date. Whether you drink or you don't drink is not the point. If you're selling alcohol, you need to be up to date with what are those trends? What is it that your customer wants? They're not necessarily, when you get a group of 20 people in the restaurant, out of those 20 people, yes, everybody's coming to eat, but most of the time they enjoy their food a lot more when they've had a drink as well. So in my opinion, I think that's one of the things that we never touch on. And I think it's one of the most important things in the restaurant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good point. What do you say to that, Ahmed?
I think I agree with Sarah 100%. She nailed it in spot, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So we can also go to a restaurant if you don't drink. I mean, as Muslims, we have limit to go to.
What we're going to do, Ahmed, we're going to actually carry on this segment after the break. So there's a quick break.
Catering Circle. In partnership with Purple Eye Technologies, in association with Meridian Grand and sponsored by MR Printers, RCI, Regency Events, iTech Boss, Prestige and DineNet.
Welcome back to the Catering Circle. If you've just joined us, you've actually missed half the show where we've had some really lively debates in the studio today. But never fear, you can actually watch the entire episode back on the Catering Circle app or on our website, cateringcircle.co.uk. So this segment of the show, we'll be talking about adopting new concepts. But before we get cracking again with the questions, here's a quick video clip from some restaurateurs on the topic.
So that gut health is so important. So what are the ingredients you're actually using in your dishes? For us here at Bombay Express, I have removed all of the dairy and egg content, making our naan breads vegan now. So this is how we're adapting to a market that is becoming predominantly plant-based. 27% of my customer base is now vegan. The breads are still light, fluffy, you still get all of the bubbles in there, and customers haven't actually noticed the change.
For decades, we have continuously been repetitive with what we are consuming. Plant-based product is the future, a revolutionary concept. We have introduced cauliflower rice as well as corn and chickpea curry as an alternative to other meat-based dishes.
I wanted to touch on special thali menu you can introduce at your restaurants where you can have a different selection of your healthy options. Thali has been quite popular in our restaurants. We branded it as Thursday Thali or Tuesday Thali Select. Give it a go. You've got plenty of ingredients in your restaurants that you can have a play around with. In our restaurant, we offer a substitute of using ghee. We use coconut oil. So if a consumer or customer wants coconut oil for their main dishes, we do that. The ingredients that we buy in, most of us don't even realize these ingredients can be used towards a vegan option. We also have a vegan menu in our restaurant. We've been doing it for some years now.
They've introduced so many new concepts in vegan market now. For example, tofu, corn, satay and whatnot. And obviously with now vegan food being a dietary requirement, it's not just like an option now, it's where it's almost classed as, it's just as important now as halal and vegetarian and whatnot. And it's really important that restaurants keep up with it, as we've tried to, thankfully. We've introduced things like coconut milk and tofu, which the customers have really enjoyed. We've explored methods of cooking using the tandoori oven, the pressure oven that we've just installed, which is fantastic for vegan food, to cook these vegetables or roast them or grill them. And the customers, they've given us good feedback.
Well, some enlightening takeaways there from our fellow restaurateurs, excuse the pun. So before, we're going to come back now to the subject matter that we were speaking about before, which is adopting new concepts. And I know before the break, we had a very lively discussion in the studio. Sarah spoke a lot about alcohol within restaurants and the trend towards that. So I actually want to go to Toff, actually, because Toff, you mentioned actually during the break, but I'd really love for you to bring the conversation online about mocktails. So give us a...
Yeah, with all due
overview.
respect to, I think I can understand where Sarah is coming from. The majority of the customers, particularly the so-called Indian, Southeast Asian restaurants, serves the white-collar, white English people. However, I think there is an alternative, and we must respect, I must say this, those people who chooses to go for halal selling non-alcohol. Hats off to you guys. You're brave and you're doing a fantastic job. Keep going. But what I'll advise to them is this. You have another option to accumulate your turnover. There is a huge range of mocktails. For example, when I see someone booking a table at my restaurant for halal food, I know they want halal, everything halal. Obviously, we do food is halal is no problem. In fact, I can say categorically, even if you go to Dorchester, they're serving halal. Hiltons and five-star hotels, because without that, you can't have customers, because there is a vast amount of customers out there demanding halal. But on the drink side, there is a mocktails. You can make brilliant mocktails and offer it to as an alternative to your alcohol. And they go down well, because those people who are looking for halal food and they're non-alcoholic drinkers, there is always an alternative. The question is, how do you offer? And the way we do it, when we know that they don't want, we even take their glasses, a wine glass away, and we offer them at the beginning a mocktail, a list of 10 mocktails. Just to name a few, Kambla Rani, Morning Star, Bay Leaf Passion, and so many others, you know, Nimura Pani. And you can charge about £7.50, which is a good margin as well, because yes, mocktail or cocktail, it takes labor, because it takes time to make. So, yeah, hats off to you guys, those who are planning to do halal business. But a tip is, go for the mocktail. Have a wide range of mocktail, and don't be shy. Offer it to your customers, and you will capitalize on it.
Great, okay. So I want to go to Asik there. So obviously we've been talking about turnover, margins on alcohol, how it's quite high, and then and mocktails there. What would you advise then your clients who's come to you and said, actually, I want to get rid of alcohol in my business?
Yeah, of course. As Tofajul said, those who wants to get rid of alcohols, they can always introduce a wide range of mocktails. I don't know the name like him. He is the master on it. But of course, they can have the wide range of mocktails. And the cost of mocktails, I think the material cost is not even 10% of the selling price. So the margin, yeah, of course, there are labor. But the margin on your materials is, I think, higher than the cocktails. Yeah. So obviously, those who are not selling alcoholic drinks, they can use the wide range of mocktails and the other drinks. If someone is, creative, like Tofajul Bhai, and bring something else other than mocktails or any other drinks.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, let's not forget why people go to restaurants in the first place. It's the food, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah. So, Mr. Chowdhury, on that vein then, so what do you feel, what makes customers come back again and again?
Before I do that, I have a comment about the halal and alcohol and so on. Majority of the restaurateurs who serve halal food and no alcohol, they're in areas where their clientele, is different. Yeah, so they keep coming. They're busy. Okay, but if you go to an area where there is no Asia, no demand for halal food and everything, and then you suddenly have a menu, halal menu, and say no alcohol is all, and so on. So nobody is going to come there. He's going to be not successful there. So I think we have to bear in mind that if you have halal food, halal no alcohol, where it is, where it is. And I don't think everyone is doing, bad business.
Absolutely. I agree.
So going back to your question, what was the question?
What makes people come back to restaurants they love?
Well,
than the food.
I think Toph said everything, okay? And the first segment I said, remember? I said that when I went to, we had a meeting, Channelist meeting, near an Italian restaurant, and then as soon as the food came, I, in my mind, decided that I would enjoy the food. Why? Because of the presentation and the items, within the dish, yeah? So that is very important.
Would you go back, though, to that restaurant?
Yeah, I would.
You would, okay.
I would, okay? His partner, Sanawar, was there. He took a photo, and I said that, send me the photo, okay? So I would go there because the food was tasty. So every restaurateur, it is known to them that, they are there to do business. And if they do not serve something which is not going to make any money, and he is not satisfying the customers, he's bound to be a failure. So the message is, you have to adapt, and the new concept, go for that immediately. And I know it is hard for my generation, because we are so used to serving the older dishes, And even now, I think chicken korma is the best seller, isn't it? Everywhere.
Yeah.
So divert from there, but keeping your old customers satisfied as well. That's very important.
Absolutely, yeah. I actually want to go to Shahina now, Shahina. So, Shahina, I know that obviously all of us in the studio today are from an Asian background, and Ahmed's from a Moroccan background, and we've spoke very much about, Indian food, the origins of it actually being very healthy, and the same with Bangladeshi food. But this isn't new information. I mean, why do you feel that maybe the trend on healthy South Asian cuisine hasn't really taken off on a commercial side of things? Like, where do you think we're going wrong? Is it changing perceptions on the consumer's perception of Indian food, or is it actually something that we need to do internally as an industry?
I think that there's been a prevalent attitude that Indian food is really heavy. Basically from, I think a lot of customers have their parents really indulging in heavier dishes, and that's what they've grown up with as well. So what's really important, I think, what I've seen is some more premium restaurants in London, because they haven't been able to have people coming into the restaurant dining rooms because of COVID. They've actually issued out sort of a self-assembly, in some ways, kits where they prepare some of the food as takeaway, but there are, say for example, we could do this with street food, and there's a healthier version as well. And it also lets the customer see how to assemble the, say, a street food wrap, for example, chicken tikka wrap, but it gives them a bit of an element of it's healthier because they've assembled it themselves. But that's another way of reactivating the customer to come back into restaurant dining rooms later, because it gives them a teaser, a taster of the food that the restaurant's able to offer. And that could be a temporary situation for restaurants that have in-house dining rather than takeaways. So I think it's really an element of trying to get the customer involved in the process, really, and also using all the multiple digital channels to really advertise, or not advertise, really promote the fact that, and also get them to interact with the restaurant in their promotions and name dishes and tell them a bit more about it. Then they become more invested in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. And actually, following on from what Shaheen just said there, Ahmed, do you feel you've had to do a lot of education to your consumers about Moroccan food and the origins of that?
Yeah, sometimes we struggle to explain to the customer a few ingredients, how they cook them, and so on. Yeah, sometimes customer come in asking what's harissa, harissa go with the chicken tagine, or with the flavor, we put spice in it, things like that. We so often come in the restaurant, yeah.
Yeah, and does that require maybe your staff to be?
Well, we educate our staff to explain what we actually do, and sometimes if you struggle to send a message there, I go with myself and explain to customers what's going on. So, and it's good for the customers when the chef come explain to them what's going on, then they feel very important and they feel more welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Toff, actually, we've spoken about this in like, to death here, but the culinary industry, it is fast changing. Yeah. So I know you've spoken about your business, how you've moved with the trends. You've had your business for how long now? 25 years, you mentioned?
Well, the brand has been in the high road for 25 years, but the restaurant I am operating has been there for 9 years, yeah. Bayleaf in Whetstone.
So how
am I taking the advantage?
Shameless
I'm sorry.
plug,
9 years.
Yeah, 9 years, the restaurant.
I thought you said 99 years.
Oh, Allah bless me.
So how do you keep your finger on the pulse then?
Well, look, I think Ahmed said it. It's about training as well, giving information and motivating your staff. Don't forget, if your staff is not with you, you are you're in no man land. You have to motivate, you have to give them incentive, you have to give them the reason why you want to innovate and be creative. Because if you're not evolving with the time, you will be left behind. I mean, for me, when I'm introducing 5 new dishes, trust me, I would take 5 out of my menu.
Okay.
Otherwise, the menu gets lost and it gets bigger, and it's impossible to cope. You can cope at a quieter time, no problem. But when it's Friday and Saturday, then it gets messy. Then people fall under a lot of pressure. Customer starts complaining, where's the food? Because you have too much on your plate. You got to have a limited, and you got to have, as I was saying earlier, you got to have some cold starters. That's a trick as well. When you have cold starters, you can prepare it, leave it in the fridge, and serve it. It's so good. And these are the small things makes an easy service for the whole evening, because we all know most of the restaurants are busy at the weekend, and that's the time that you have to focus. Creativity, innovativeness is important. But at the same time, I always say that make sure you do keep that authenticity as well, the way of cooking. You can change your menu, but you have to keep that authenticity. For example, keeping a charcoal oven is a very good thing. But if some councils are not allowing to have charcoal in that area. So if that's the case, don't have the tandoori, have a naan machine and have a rational oven.
Or a gas tandoori.
Yeah, gas tandoori is alternative, but having a naan machine, electric one, is really good because, like I said, even the porters, they can make naans. When you need them, you got help in hand, and you got to work not harder, smarter as well, and that's the way forward.
For sure.
Smaller menu, be creative, presentation, theatres. I present a couple of theatres for the last 8 years. And I get $1 million smile, the smoky dish I do. If you go to my website, Liquid Nitrogen. And, money can't buy that smile, I say it. As soon as you pour the hot water in that liquid nitrogen, the smoke comes out in front of you. The whole table gets cloudy, and they give you $1 million smile. And that's the experience they go with.
The client's coming for experience, not for food. They have food in your fridge in your house anyway.
Absolutely.
So you come in for entertainment, for a special day,
Exactly.
So when you say clients come in for experience, not necessarily the food, so what do you feel about, these dark kitchen concepts that are popping up?
That is a good point as well. Dark kitchen now. I think if instead of takeaway, you have a lot of choice of cuisine, like Chinese, Indian, whatever you want. The restaurant is actually go in there, you dress up nicely, you go in with your family, with your girlfriend, wherever you go. And you go for experience, sit down to eat, have a drink and relax. But if you are going for the meal, you can have your meal, maybe your mom, she will cook better than that. So you just stay home instead. Yeah. But I think the restaurant concepts, people going out for sit down and relax and enjoy themselves. The dark kitchen, I didn't think is new things, like basically like takeaway business in big scale.
Yeah.
So I don't think that will work in my opinion, I don't think it will go for long.
No?
Yeah.
What do you think,
Well,
Dolph?
I think the opposite, really, because I'll tell you why. For the last 2 years, lockdown has changed the eating habit as well. The takeaway has been boosted up, and people are getting in the habit of having. We did have fantastic takeaway business anyway, but that has been boosted because a lot of people never had takeaway. I can categorically tell you, so many of my customers used to say, I've never had takeaway. Only recently, with the COVID, they got used to it, so they will be there. And the dark kitchen, I think it's benefit to the restaurateurs if you can implement it in a shrewd way. Because we all know, most I'm saying, the restaurants are very quiet at weekdays as well as lunch. And these are quick bite stuff, you know. You can have a dark kitchen with fast food theme. And if you can introduce this with a smaller scale for lunch and weekdays evening, and if it even covers your labor, the fixed cost, I think you're doing well. Because there is no doubt, I'm sure the viewers will agree with me here, most of the lunch hours, those who are opening, very few actually, to be honest, are making a loss. And that's where maybe if you can take the headache and if you can be brave to introduce some sort of dark kitchen, because I'm on the verge of doing one on a serious note, on a vegan concept. And it's so easy, it's fast food. And we all know fast food, there's no denial. It's fried, sauce, and where you go, that's what it is. But as long as you do not lose your focus on your main business, it can be beneficial.
Definitely. So on that vein then, Atiq, so what would you advise your clients? Do many of them come to you and say, look, I'm thinking of doing a dark kitchen, I'm thinking of running multiple brands? Like, what would you advise on that?
I think dark kitchen will do continuously better than ever. And obviously, during the lockdown period, loads of people dining habit has changed because people could not go into the restaurants. And I think loads of elder generation still, and younger generations as well, but I think mostly the elder generations, still they are not going out that much. Still they want to do the dine-in at their dining table. So if this is the case, then the demand for the dark kitchens will be increased a lot, and it is increasing. And there are loads of dark kitchens. I have one client, he has got 6 kitchens under one roof. Yeah, under one roof he has got 6 kitchens, and he has done fantastically well. So he's opening his second one basically. And because, you know, the main thing is he can use his labor hour much more efficiently, because if you have 6 cuisines under one roof, then your workers, the idle labor hour is not there. You can use them in any of the kitchens. So they are not sitting around. You are not wasting your money on the idle labor.
Front house labor, basically.
Front house, even
you
the
don't need
back house.
them in the business.
No, even the back house laborer, because you need.
Ahmed, it's mainly the fast food.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah. You cannot have the finer cuisine. And the Michelin star chefs. They spend 15 hours, 10 hours preparing, and the delivery is only 2 hours. It's not that. Fast food, fry. I think Shahana mentioned about a wrap. This sort of thing. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, Atiq, about your client particularly. Yeah.
And another issue is...
if I can add, sorry. And these products, to deliver, you don't need 3 years experience. Yes. Trust me, they can be trained online.
Right.
If you have some sort of experience in the kitchen, believe me, there are concepts out there which they're training the whole menu online.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're going to do is we're actually going to continue after the break and come back to you, Atiq, okay? So hold that thought. All right, here's a quick break.
Catering Circle. in partnership with Purple Eye Technologies, in association with Meridian Grand and sponsored by MR Printers, RCI, Regency Events, iTech Boss, Prestige and DineNet.
Good evening and welcome back to the Catering Circle. This is our final segment for this evening's show. But like I mentioned before, if you've just joined us, you can watch the entire episode from start to finish on our website, cateringcircle.co.uk, or better still, download the app, Catering Circle. Right, so before we broke off earlier on today, we actually started to speak about a very contentious topic, which was dark kitchens. So I actually want to pick up from where we left off earlier, Atiq, and actually carry on the conversation. So we spoke about dark kitchens, you spoke about your client who has 6 kitchens under one roof. So would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so he just started not recently, I think during the COVID period he started. And he started from an industrial unit, basically. And now, from his success, he's starting the second one. So, of course, he's doing fantastically well. So, from that idea, what I have advised few of my clients, that you can operate as a dark kitchen during the weekdays. What it will do for you, during the weekdays, our Indian restaurateurs, basically, they have loads of idle labor and idle capacity during the weekdays. So from Monday to Thursday, they have loads of idle capacity. So those idle capacity can be used to work as a dark kitchen and doing the delivery only. And in that way, they can generate loads of revenues. And there are ways to save you taxes on those dark kitchen concept as well. But of course, for that, I don't have that much time to speak about that now. But you can use your idle labor and idle capacity and boost your turnover by doing dark kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, thank you there, Atiq. I'm going to head back over to Zoom now and speak with Sarah. So, Sarah, I know we spoke about earlier on today about new food trends, street food, etc., wraps, you name it, we've spoken about it. But where do you stand in terms of like small plates? Because that's also a trend that's emerging, especially in the Indian food industry. Like, do you feel that's something that we can also capitalise on? Or again, do you feel it's something that's here today, gone tomorrow?
Are you talking about taster plates?
No, like almost a la carte, street food style, like you see it very much in the likes of, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to line names, but you're a very popular Indian restaurant that rhymes with tissue. So, yeah. Yeah.
I think, I mean, me personally, I think a few years ago, I think Indian street food became really big and it was a really big trend. But I think Indian street food is one of those things that if you're in India and they talk about street food, you're talking about you find food on the street everywhere. You know, you can, and it's all delicious. But here, I think when people come in and sitting down and they're eating, I think we're talking about, I must also say, what Mr. Chowdhury said was absolutely spot on, and one of the things that I didn't get to mention while I was speaking last time about when you're doing certain halal and that kind of thing, the place where you are, that's really, really important. And with Indian street food, I think it's one of those things that it's nice to have. It's something different, and it was kind of innovative and exciting. And I think it's run its course a little bit because where people are eating out a lot now, they're gone almost back to what they were sort of having before. That's what I've noticed in with a lot of the Indian food restaurants that I'm working with. It seems to have been a little bit died out. So you'll find a few things on the menu, but not so much street food popular as it was before. I think also one of the other things is where we talk about the restaurants that specialize in that kind of thing. So if somebody wanted to eat street food, for example, or those kind of plates, they go to those specialist restaurants that are dealing with that. Because you wouldn't expect all of the restaurants to be able to provide things like that, because they're the kind of little fiddly bits that take up quite a lot of time as well to prepare and that kind of thing. So I think in terms of sort of Indian street food and that sort of thing, I think it has been extremely popular, and it was popular for a very long time, but I do feel that it is dying out a bit.
Okay.
Like Balti.
Like Baltis, okay.
Balti came, it was a craze, you know.
Right.
And then how long?
Started from
Within 10 years, gone.
Interesting. Right, okay. Well, I want to head back to Shahina there. So Shahina, we've spoken about this many times on the show today based on the topic veganism being pretty big at the moment. All menus, especially in all restaurants, whether you go to Mexican right through to Indian and Thai, have vegan menus, specialist vegan menus. But I remember not so long ago, calorie consumption and sodium consumption was really popular, and most menus actually had their calorie count by each dish. Now, do you feel that trend has gone, or or are we moving or evolving into different concepts now?
Well, I think it's really important to note the fact that Brexit has actually caused a bit of a salt shortage at the moment. So that comes into play as well. But I do think that calories are here to stay, and veganism is definitely here to stay, mainly because of the sustainability factor that is really, really big at the moment. And going forward, it's going to be even more important. So veganism actually helps with sustainability, especially if it's locally sourced ingredients. Farm to table is such a big thing. And really, calories are always going to be to calorie count rather than just rather than nutritionist. So I factor both in. So I'm in medicine and nutrition, but I think it's really important to notice the fact that both those things are going to come into play. The government is actually looking at calories as a main factor for healthy eating and also obesity control. So we really have to consider both aspects. And I think veganism has an aspect of the environment and sustainability behind it, really driving it forward. So that's really going to be staying for the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you on that. And actually, picking up from what you've just said there, where do you stand in terms of, obviously, food waste, which is quite a contentious topic at the moment, especially with COP26 and provenance, like I mentioned earlier. How do you feel, restaurants and also chefs can actually look to incorporate and really sing home that subject of food waste?
So what was mentioned a lot about street food. Now, street food is great for really reusing some of the left, or say, for example, you have a remainder or remnant curries and dishes. They can be incorporated into a sort of a fusion food in some ways, or traditional street foods as well. And a wrap, for example, can reuse, it's very healthy as well, so you can use that as a selling point. You can also reuse some of the remaining curries and dishes that are still there from the day before, and that's still viable. And also, you can actually remarket that as a whole new concept. And again, what was mentioned earlier about dark kitchens was really a great thing to incorporate as well during the dead time of a trading day.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to what you said, like using the wastage, I think Toff and Atik would agree, like you can create a new concept based on food waste, maybe have a Chinese or a Mexican from the waste that you would get from Indian.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to play around with what you have.
Sure.
Wastage is no good for the environment, no good for your business, no good for no one. Mm-hmm. So if you can incorporate, wastage means you might prepare chicken tikka, for example, and you can use that. We repeatedly mentioned wrap or even fried with some sauce as a fast food item. But you have to be, end of the day, creative and be brave. You see, if you don't try, you're not going to get the result. If you still be like, oh no, it's not going to work. Don't be negative, be brave, go out your way and give it a go, because nothing, you can't lose nothing by trying. But if you don't try, you've got everything to lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. What do you think about that, Ahmed?
And in addition, if I just can add, about the Eco 26 thing. As Indian restaurateurs, takeaways, I would encourage everyone to play a small role. And the role is try and use not the plastic containers, biodegradable packaging. And it may be a small thing, but it will, on the longer term, it will have a bigger impact. And more importantly, we are playing our role as a business community, as an industry as well. And if nobody does nothing about it, it's just not going to work. It's not going to be, we weren't able to sustain the world, particularly where Bangladesh is based. Bangladesh is one of the most vulnerable country for the climate change, and we must play. I'll give you an example. You know, the plastic containers, conventional ones, the one we use, it takes 450 years to dissolve, whereas biodegradable packaging dissolves in between 3 to 6 months. So saving the planet is something that we must look into as well and play our part as an industry.
Absolutely, and I love that we're going to end this segment on that quote. That I think is the quote of the segment right there. So we're actually going to go to our final segment for the show this evening, which is advice and top tips. So here's a quick video clip. Right, I'm sure we can all agree, to everyone that's been watching the show today, that tonight's show has been extremely lively and lots of debate and especially food for thought. But this segment, we're just going to do a quick roundup of all of our guests and for them to give their one piece of advice or a top tip to our viewers today. So I'm actually going to start on the Zoom. So Sarah, if I come to you first, what advice would you give us and what is your top tip based on healthy food and new concepts?
I would say with healthy food and new concepts, I would say for most of the restaurants, if you haven't already started doing it, is to, first of all, as I said earlier, is to slightly compress your menu so it's not as big. I would also say that introducing new and different food, I know that people are introducing different dishes all the time with chicken or lamb, but bringing completely other foods. Now, I know that's also one of the things that I mentioned earlier about the restaurants who don't sell alcohol. They also cut out quite a lot of opportunity to sell dishes like, I don't know, rabbit, for example. They wouldn't be selling rabbit because it's a halal restaurant. They wouldn't be selling things like crab or, you know, lobster because they won't also eat the shell food. So if you are a restaurant that is able to do those things, I would say introducing different kinds of food, looking into trends, as I said, in what people are drinking, what's the latest type of wines that are going, things like that. But I think one of the other things that I think is really important for the restaurant, because we all know that there's a staff issue in most of the Indian restaurants, Bangladeshi restaurants, would be closing one day a week and just having a rest and giving everyone one day off. So you're not managing rotas for the staff and, oh, you know, somebody's gone on their day off and they're not coming back in time to work. We all know what we're talking about. We've all been there where, oh, no, the tandoori chef isn't back in time. What are we going to do? You know, so I think if the restaurants close one day a week and all the staff get one day off, you're sorted and you've got the rest of the week for everyone to just crack on and get their work done. That's the top tips that I can give.
Well, thanks, Sarah. So in summary, compressed menu, consider rabbits and have a day off, which is really great point. So thank you very much. Shahina, I'm going to go to you next. What are your top tips for us?
I think we're really important to try and incorporate and consider customer data to make a lot of your decisions, because it cuts down on food waste, also labour as well, because you don't use the labour during the times you don't need it. So really use the customer data to make decisions about merchandising, promotions, what new dishes you might want to incorporate depending on demand. And also it helps to involve the existing customers, helps them become more retained. So you retain the existing customers more. You actually create more personalised to the local area offers as well. And so it really hits them up in terms of the demand that they have in the local area, rather than just a wider trend. You're actually really catering to your existing customers and pulling in more local customers, which is what you really need. So promotions, customer data can be used to help with that, merchandising, new dishes, and getting customers involved with naming dishes, quizzes, things like that. Things go viral very quickly in terms of marketing with less marketing spend as well. And you have a lower budget for marketing. And that really helps with that. And also just considering, just keeping an eye on wider trends as well, but really, really try and consider what your local market needs. And try and source food from the local suppliers if you can as well. And you'll probably be able to negotiate more with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Data is absolutely queen, and negotiating with suppliers. So really practical tips there. Thank you. And how about yourself, Toff? What advice would you give us?
Well, really, I agree with what Shaheen and Sarah said. My top tip, if you are in the city where our community is there and you're serving a Indian cuisine, over the recent time, what I've noticed is do not ignore our young customers, because they're on high earning, they're spending big money in other cuisine. Try and attract them. They are big customers, because that's what I've seen, number one. Number two, I would say be creative. And I agree with smaller menu. I've been telling this for several years, smaller menu, but importantly, sustainable product as well. You have to be creative, presentation, be brave to try something. And I think dark kitchen is something that we must consider as well. We cannot ignore that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. There's a really great points there. And Ahmed, very quickly, what would you say would be your top tips?
I agree with the ladies there before. So they nailed it there, all the tips, and with Toffles as well. Yeah, I mean, my opinion in this case, I mean, you should use your local produce.
Sure.
That's very important. And source menu. And healthy menu, healthy food, and to introduce some sort of entertainment, because the new generation, like you said, they are bored with the same food.
Yeah.
Nothing changed. You need to make some European twist to it instead of having the same dish all the time from granddad to us. So we need to give something. You go to other restaurants for a reason, because you're bored at home the same food. Go to your restaurant the same food as well, but you're looking for something new, but it's halal.
Yeah.
So like Sarah, she said, you need to introduce the drinks, and even have halal food, but the food have to be a bit twisted with the European twist. You know, for example, like we do in our restaurant, like chicken ballotine, which is halal and have nice creamy flavor, and you can have it spicy if you want. I mean, you can do a lot of things with it.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, Ahmed. Those are really great. And to you, Atiq, very quickly, what would your top tips be?
Okay. My top tips will be, I am always urge my clients to think about scaling up. And we have seen German doner kebab recently. In last 4 or 5 years, they have loads of outlets across the country. And previously, the Turkish chef, they used to say that other than them, no one can make doner kebab. But we have seen anyone can make a doner kebab within 1 or 2 days training. So if German doner kebab can make it happen, why we Bengalis couldn't make it happen in our industry? Great. There is a way. So I will urge the innovative businessmen like Tofazzal Bhai to think about this, how to scale up and how to make one chaiwala or one doner kebab, German doner kebab, or one dishum. Those who are now worth millions. Not even 1 or 2 millions. I have heard dishum has been valued around 100 millions.
Okay, all right, that's wonderful. I think this is the way is your key message, so I love that. And finally, we're going to end with Mr. Chowdhury. So, Mr. Chowdhury, what are your top tips?
My comment would be that, still now, many restaurants open lunchtime and do nothing there. Wasting sort of electricity, gas and everything, then the labor pay for it. And the end of the day, end of the week, it's difficult to pay the stuff. So if they're in an area where there are no customers, close lunchtime. And the other trend has been restaurants would open at 6 p.m. and close at 11:30 or midnight. Okay, I don't think it's necessary anymore. They can open at 4:30 or 5 o'clock to catch the customers, going out of the office or from work, and then close by 10 o'clock. That way, they will encourage employment as well. People say that this industry, they don't want to work, younger generation especially, in odd hours, long hours, this and that. You don't need that. Okay. And then the other thing is, as I said, that healthy food is very important. And then, there are no two ways about it, have a smaller menus, smaller menu, healthy food, and then timing.
Lovely. Smaller menu, healthy food, timing. Love it. Thank you very much. Well, that's all actually for this week's episode. I want to thank our guests, especially over onto the Zoom. It's lovely to have more ladies on the show. It's great. And also our guests in the studio today. And before we go, I'll just give you a quick shout out about the next season's episode, which is on the 16th of November. And it's all about marketing and branding. So hopefully we'll see you then. So once again, thank you very much to all our viewers today, and good evening from me.